Hello, cooking enthusiasts. First of all, thank you so much for all of the feedback on the last video. I have made a camera purchase that is a bit interesting, but I think it might be a good solution for some of my visual presentation issues. I'll get into that more in a future video, but for now, let's focus on my dry aging projects, which have grown in scale since I last made a video about them. In that previous dry aged beef video, I also discussed my black garlic experiments. Unfortunately, I've had to put those on hold until I can get a temperature controller because my current setup with a rice cooker was running way too hot. So back in that first dry aging video, the projects were a prime rib and a rack of short ribs. Both of those projects are complete. The prime rib trimmed and cut into steaks after about 45 days, and those are in my brother's freezer because that whole project was a birthday gift for him. The short ribs we processed after a little over 50 days, and 2 of them were cooked and eaten sous vide, and the other 2 are in the freezer. The yield was pretty low on the short ribs. That's partially because the nature of the cut, and partially because this rack of short ribs was overly trimmed for our purposes. In the future, we're going to work with butchers more directly to get cuts of meat with more fat on them and far less trim. However, the meat we were able to get from the short ribs was absolutely delicious. I decided to cook them at 55 Celsius for about 24 hours. Because it is still a tough cut, I probably could have gone a little bit longer, but it was decently tender at that temperature. And this is actually the first piece of properly dry-aged beef that I've tasted, so the flavor was very encouraging. Because of the cooking technique, it tasted like a rare steak, but also with a layer of almost pastrami minus the salt, or beef broth, basically that concentrated beef flavor. Despite the low yield, I definitely want to work with short ribs again, because all of the trim is in the freezer, ready to get turned into something, and I'm also excited to work with the rib bones. Now, if you're familiar with some of my other projects, it might not surprise you that after doing something relatively basic, the next step is to go crazy experimental. Currently, we have an entire shoulder of lamb aging. Actually, the animal was over 1 year old, so it's technically mutton. I'm sure someone somewhere has dry-aged lamb and mutton, but personally, I haven't heard of it. So that should be interesting and pretty intense. Finally, I just started aging 2 beef picanhas. Picanhas are a Brazilian cut of beef that you can research. Again, this is more trimmed than I would have liked, so we'll probably only age them for about 30 days. But the interesting thing is that one of the picanhas I cold smoked for about an hour and a half. So it's still completely raw, but at least the outer layer got a good dose of primarily alder and hickory smoke. So I'm very curious to see what happens to those smoke flavors during the aging process. All of the current aging projects are being done in a normal mini fridge using the Umai dry aging bags. After this current round of experiments, we have plans for upgrading the setup, but that will be discussed in a future video. If you have any questions about these projects, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching.